Hey peoples, I have a couple things that I want to explain. Everything in this video is going to be my opinion on what DP is exactly. I know there are a lot of videos online that cover it, but I just feel like I can expound on it more. It's just my opinion. My initial goal for this whole video is to put an end to the whole DP debate. I want to kind of have a really well-rounded video. Now, with that being said, I also have written a book on DP. You can be able to find it in the link in the description or right here. So let's get started. Firstly, I want to explain what DP is. Medical term for it is a dissociative disorder. So what that means, your consciousness is becoming separate from your body. You're becoming actually hyper conscious of your own body. Depersonalization is being attached from the body. Derealization is being attached from the surroundings. So there's a lot of internal and external that's going on with it, but ultimately it's based on consciousness. From what I have gathered. Philosophical term for it, there are a couple books that kind of go through it. Sartre does talk about it in his book Nausea. There's a movie on it, it's called Numb. The philosophy behind DP, basically the idea of kind of thinking further on from what you perceive to be reality. It definitely is very existential. So authors like Sartre and Albert Camus, just to name a few, that kind of dive into existentialism. Sartre kind of explained it. There is consciousness and then there is being. You ever read Being and Nothingness? It's a good book. It explains the philosophy of being. When you become hyper conscious of your own self, it becomes kind of self-destructive because it's a paradox. You know, how can somebody be conscious of their own consciousness? And it just kind of like goes into a void. A lot of this has to do with based on fear and anxiety. Now, to explain the feeling of it, the closest that I can think of to a feeling of DP is, let's say you get into a car accident. One that isn't going to hurt you or not a major injury or anything like that, just a shooken up sort of accident, like no deploying of airbags or anything like that. Now, you get into the accident and when it's happening, you kind of have an adrenaline rush. You're almost looking at your surroundings as if it isn't really happening because you kind of get into the daily grind of being comfortable with mundaneness of life, going to work, the store, you know, hanging out with friends, family, things like that. So when bad things happen, such as a car accident, it almost feels like very surreal. It kind of distances you a little bit. It makes you a little bit of a trauma defense mechanism. When this car accident happens, first of all, it feels like a dream because you're unbelieving what's going on. I feel like you wouldn't get depersonalization so much from the car accident, but you would definitely get derealization because you look at your surroundings and it would look as though it isn't actually happening and that it's dreamlike. For most people, the feeling goes away after like a couple seconds. When reality sits in, they're like, oh, I actually got into a car accident. Like, I have to get person's insurance, make sure they're all right, call cops, whatever you have to do. So that's most people. Now, DP is when it's just all the time. That little bit of seconds where you were feeling derealization, it's amplified and it's all the time. It's very distracting. And the reason why it sucks so much is because of how distressing it is. You kind of get conscious of your own self and your own DP, your own perception of your own DP. It's just a spiral. You just kind of get worried if things are going right with your consciousness, and then your consciousness itself questions itself, and it's just the biggest mind blown ever with DP. It makes the daily grind that I mentioned earlier feel as though it's lifeless. It doesn't have the luster. There's lack of color. There's lack of any feelings. That's really what it ends up being. Now, some of the causes, biggest cause that I think it's just recurring stress and trauma. For the people that have DP their entire life from birth till death, I just feel so bad for them. But for the people that had like an onset of DP where something triggered it, usually before that time there was a lot of stress and anxiety that was accruing and it was just not being addressed or not being addressed properly. So when you got a lot of stress in life and then you got a lot of predispositions towards the DP, it takes a toll on your body because that makes you self-reflect. From what I gather, when you have high amounts of stress and you have the anxiety, the depression, the sadness, the stress, the predispositions, and everything is just kind of like balling into one, it makes you sort of set up to be able to look at your surroundings, look at your hands, and say to yourself, like, what am I doing? And who am I? Why am I living? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? You kind of ruminate on death, ruminate on life itself and why it's even possible that you're able to even have a consciousness. And then it's just, again, it's very philosophical, existential. So trauma, stress, anxiety, depression. Those are all the things that can cause chaos of the mind, in my opinion. Now, a major trigger for most people commonly is marijuana or any other recreational drug that anybody uses, but majority it is marijuana. For me, it was something that triggered marijuana wise. I smoked, and it's very hard to explain what I was experiencing. When I smoked, it was like a blunt. I just took one ridiculously huge hit. What ended up happening first, when I took the hit, nothing happened initially for like, I would say about 2 minutes. And then like I was looking around my surroundings and I noticed that there was dirt on the ground. So I like was at my house at the time, and I was with somebody who brought over the blunt. She smoked the entire thing, so I know it's not something that may have been laced, or I don't know what. There's so many theories on what it could have been, but I think it was probably just marijuana. Now, with all the stress that was accruing, I was having major depression issues, thoughts of suicide all the time, always worried about myself, always worried about money, bills, what I'm doing in life. It was early 20s, so there was a lot of transitional periods that were going on. So a lot of stress was accrued. Trauma, or what I perceive to be of trauma, from things that have upset me, memories and things that, I don't want to get into it, but just certain things would bother me, and it would be deeply rooted into like my consciousness, and it was almost actually not even my consciousness, it was in my subconsciousness. So when I smoked the marijuana, I noticed all the dirt on the ground. I was sweeping in circles, and then it just kind of like, I was like looping. It was like I was spinning, and I was like, it almost seemed like I was like diving into the actual like spinning of itself. And then what ended up happening is it was immediate. I was actually drinking. It was like a distant, very, very distant. And I thought I was dead because I knew I was conscious, but I was like, this is further than consciousness. Like I felt like I was further on than what I was normally used to. And then everything was just repeating. If you could skim a YouTube video, like you see little snippets, that's what my visuals looked like. And it was extremely terrifying. It was almost like I was a computer or something. I wasn't actually a living thing. And when you have thoughts like that, it is very distressing. Heart rate goes up. I was freaking running around. I was saying crazy things. I was like thinking that I was like God and stuff like that. And this chick was just, she smoked the entire blunt, but obviously I was a freaking buzzkill over that. So she was helping me. She was crying and stuff like that. I eventually calmed down. It took like 2 solid days of just where it's like the winding down, getting back into like reality, but I never actually like got fully back in, because I was always like, what if I revert back? Like a lot of DP is a feeling of just going crazy and kind of like self-doubting yourself. So that's my personal trigger. For a lot of people, it's a lot different. It could be ecstasy. I've heard of that. Marijuana. It really could be anything, as long as you have the disposition towards actually questioning your own reality. That's essentially what it all is. Like that's the only thing it all is. If you're able to question your own reality and then kind of self-reflect on that own reality and become scared of that or distressed by it, then DP can set in, because again, it's like the car accident. Things don't appear real. It's almost like you have a camera in front of you and your eyes aren't actually your eyes. You're actually looking through a camera. It's exactly like you're just watching a movie. The thing of it about DP is it feels like it can be more real, and that's why it's so distressing. Now, I want to get into temporary remedies that I found when I was going through it was basically a 2-year DP chaos crisis. It was the worst time of my life. Now, everything that I state in this is all crutches. I'm just gonna flat out tell you, it's all crutches. They ultimately will not recover you, but they will temporarily remedy the feelings of DP. DP is you become very sensitive to literally everything. It almost like it amplifies all your senses, and I think that has to do with your adrenaline, being scared, and just you're basically on high alert because you're fearful. That's essentially what it is. I would get sunglasses. Sunglasses usually help. I was always kind of like scared of like light, too much light, so I would always wear sunglasses even indoors. Outdoors especially. Headphones I would wear. Headphones constantly playing meditation music and ASMR videos. You can look them up on YouTube, just any ASMR. My favorite is a channel called Massage ASMR. His name's Dimitri. He's a really good guy. His videos are very professional, very great. They always helped me with my anxiety issues and fear and kind of suppressed everything and calmed me down. Owning pets is a good one. Being able to like pet a dog and take your consciousness from yourself and onto something else. Being able to kind of cherish. It's your fur baby, you know what I mean? Like it's like you love the dog, so it kind of start taking care of that creature as opposed to, you know, taking care of yourself. Having a relationship is good for some people, if it's possible. The reason why I say that is because when you have a companion during all this, it makes it a lot easier, but not for everybody. For me especially, it didn't make it easier, but I know for some people it definitely could, because when you have a loving relationship, someone able to comfort you back into a peaceful, livable reality, it kind of makes it a lot more at ease. But ultimately it's up to you to really overcome what the DP is. I always wore hoodies, just the soft material, it just felt like a pillow on me, and I would be outside and I would always wear, it was like a mystery kind of hiding myself from the world kind of, it was a crutch, but it for some reason it just made me feel more at ease when I was kind of separated from everything. But it's not a good thing to go into, but if you're having trouble right now, at least it's something temporary that I can help you out with. Now, your bed is definitely your comfort zone, or at least it was for me. So buying a lot of pillows, buying a very comfortable blankets, comforter, the whole 9 yards, and just making it as freaking decked out as possible. Like just having your bed be very, very safe. Kind of having a place where at least you can kind of like justify, you know, oh, at the end of the day, I'm going to go here to my bed and I'm going to actually feel safe. Like having some sort of belief, or it's not a good thing, but even having some sort of hope definitely alleviates it. And when you have a nice bed to sleep in, something comfortable, something to calm you down, something to lower your blood pressure and the heart rate, the hyperventilation, and being able to just kind of like settle your mind when you're going through all that craziness that's going on in your mind and constant rumination, it's definitely helpful. I've heard of doing yoga helping people. I personally have never done it, but I know that yoga, you know, when you're stretching out all your muscles, it's kind of like alleviating all the, they say toxins, stress that are within your body. It's definitely something to look into. I think in general, you should probably exercise. Exercising does produce endorphins and get your blood pumping and takes all that excess energy and all that excess stress that you're having in your body and being able to just kind of set it out into the world. That's definitely helpful in general, just yoga, exercising, anything like that. Listening to music for me was really, really helpful during my distressing times, especially anything that was like nostalgic. So like Disney movies, the Disney soundtracks and stuff like that. So I would reflect on a past time that was before. I think that's really why it was so enjoyable, because it kind of brought me back my own mind and own consciousness and made me remember previous consciousness behind the DP, if that makes sense. So for a lot of people, music is very soothing in and of itself. It's definitely a stress reliever. So that's something you want to look into if you want a temporary relief. Social media is definitely helpful, but it's can possibly put you in a downward spiral, so to speak. With Facebook and the way it's going nowadays, it's just like it's very negative. So you got to kind of be aware of possible triggers and things that can kind of get your mind stirring and stuff that come up on Facebook, especially with like anything that has to do with politics, death, relationships, people doing all this crazy stuff. Like social media is great, but it's also a very good distraction. So social media is a good temporary remedy, but ultimately it's something you got to kind of weigh the pros and cons. What I would highly recommend is proper sleep. You should get sleep headphones. What they are is they're essentially, it's like a headband that goes over. You can buy it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. It's very comfortable, because the problem with headphones and sleep is it's very uncomfortable because it's like pressing into your ears, and when you lay down it's not a comfortable sleep. So when you're able to listen to those ASMR videos, meditation videos, soothing music, stuff like that, it's a lot better to just have something that's more fitting for sleep. So something that is sleep headphones definitely help. It's just a way to be able to more relax and still have that stimulation, the relaxing music, all that combined together will just make the sleep a lot better. Sleep is definitely helpful during a distressing time like that, but sleeping too much is definitely not helpful. These are all temporary. They help you in the meantime, by all means. So now that I kind of went over the temporary ways to alleviate some of the DP and DR and all that, now I want to kind of get into like the more serious ways to help improve yourself. First thing you want to do is go to a doctor. Now going to a doctor is hard. It's hard finding a doctor, first of all, because a lot of them, it really depends on how willing the doctor is to help people out. Some are not very good doctors, and they're not very good at giving advice, willing to go the extra mile ultimately. And it kind of depends on whatever is going in the background of wherever they're working. A lot of cases. And if you're worked to death and you have a bunch of patients back to back to back to back, it's very hard when you get to your slot for them to actually go the extra mile, if that makes sense. So these are kind of things that you want to look for. It's going to take some trial and error with some doctors. You're going to probably go to a doctor multiple times to find out that they're not a good fit for you, but just keep persisting. Keep trying to find that good doctor that'll, help you out and make you feel more secure and more safe, especially with your mental health. You may need to get meds. Meds are, a lot of people, they kind of disbelieve in the concept of meds and if they work or not. I'm personally a believer in it. I believe that if your brain is not producing a chemical, for example, serotonin, and you take a medicine that produces more serotonin and makes it to the normal level as the general population, it makes you more susceptible and more healthy to be able to even dive into the concept of recovery. Because when you are able to have the proper nutrition, proper vitamins, proper chemicals going on in your brain, then it's a lot easier to take the steps necessary in order to get the help that you need. Because when you have problems with your brain that are chemically wrong, it's almost impossible for you to even have the ability to even take the necessary steps that I'm going to explain. There is a thing that I would recommend that worked for me if you're going to take medicine, but you have to ask your doctor for it. It's called genetic testing for depression treatment. What they essentially do is they take a swab of your mouth, and what they're trying to look for is how you metabolize medicines. So on the sheet, I don't know personally how it works as far as what the sheet looks like, but this is the way the doctor explained it to me. My doctor was able to tell me exactly what I metabolized the best and what I metabolized not the best. So when I was taking medicine, when I initially took this test, there was a medicine that I wasn't metabolizing at all. So what ended up happening is I was taking a medicine having all the side effects, but I wasn't getting the benefits of the chemical treatment that I was supposed to do. So that's just like something to be able to find the correct medicine faster. So genetic testing, it's a swab, but you do ask for it. I don't know if your insurance will cover it. It's just something that you kind of have to do a little bit of research on. I'll put a article also in the link in the description of, so have a little bit better understanding of what it is. Definitely get some blood work done. Any kind of work done that can showcase a level of something that you're not getting enough of. So particularly vitamins. For example, I don't get enough vitamin D. It's not because of sun. I think it runs in my family because my family goes outside all the time and they just don't get enough vitamin D. They say it's from the sun. Don't know why it is, but we all in my family just have lower vitamin D, so I take a vitamin D supplement. Putting the levels down here all the way to the normal level as the general population, so it makes you a little bit on the same playing field, if that makes sense. So definitely check out vitamins and what you're not getting enough of. Go over that with your doctor, things of that sort. So in essence, being inside of a healthy body is the only way to have the foundation in order to progress to a recovery. Because without the foundation, it's possible to get better without medicines and doing the natural way and stuff like that. And definitely try it first before you go the whole medicine route and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not just saying just jump into it, but try every single outlet. Try every single thing that you can. These are just some things that have helped me. Again, this is just my opinion, but it's something that you just definitely should look into. It will be nearly impossible to be able to recover if your chemicals in your brain, your body, everything health-wise, you have to be at least average or in pretty good health, aside from the actual distressing parts where you're stressed out, have anxiety. That comes later on with therapy and things of that sort. But you need a healthy body to have the foundation towards that, because it's just hard to get to there if you don't have the tools necessary to even get there. Alright, so the next thing I want to address is stress and worry. DP is kind of centered around being stressed out, being worried about your own self, being worried about your own health, being basically a hypochondriac. And there's a hyper-consciousness that's happening. You're being conscious of your own consciousness, which makes you worried that you'll lose your consciousness and possibly go crazy. These are just some of the things that make it a chaotic world kind of in your mind. So a lot of it has to be reducing stress. So, things like meditation, mindfulness techniques, breathing techniques, because a lot of the symptoms that you're going to be feeling is like racing heart, feeling weak, faint, and dizzy, tingling or numbness sensations, things of that sort, a sense of terror that's going on, feeling sweaty or having chills, just kind of being scared in general, just having hypersensitivity again, to everything, your surroundings, visuals, hearing, touch, just everything kind of freaks you out. You're just on high alert all the time. Chest pains, breathing is it's just heavy, it's shallow, and it just raises your adrenaline, and because and it gets to a spiral because you're noticing all this as it's happening. You're hyper conscious, so you're noticing all these sensations, and it makes the sensations worse because you're noticing. And then it just keeps spiraling and spiraling, and the stress is just gonna overpower you, and it's gonna cripple you. Like, that's essentially how bad it gets, like as with DP. So the main thing though is feeling a loss of control. So when you're hyper conscious of these symptoms, you're gonna feel like you're about to go crazy or lose control. Essentially, you're going through a panic attack, but it's all the time. That's how DP operates. The DP itself is a change in perception it's a dissociative disorder, so you're kind of separate from what's going on. You're distancing yourself from how the stress and trauma of your psyche doesn't kind of want to be involved in what's going on around you. So that's why you're kind of dissociating. So when you become more into life and wanting to pursue it and wanting to progress, that's how you kind of start healing. But to get there, it takes a lot of huge steps. A lot of what you need to do, breathing techniques, it could be yoga, it could be meditation, anything to reduce stress. If it's something that excites you or something that you enjoy, then go for it. If it can get your mind off of it, if it can distract you, distractions are great. If you can distract yourself as long as possible and not notice that you have DP, that's how you can get to recovery. Now, the spiral with the thoughts and the physical that's happening, they kind of can correlate. That's what makes it a chain reaction. So if you can retrain yourself to basically stop the worrying, not stop the worrying, but because that's insensitive of me to say, but almost kind of come up with a separate thought of what something could be. For example, when you know that it's anxiety, I'm having heart palpitations, I'm having this, racing heart, blah, 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 blah. This is all symptoms of a panic attack, as opposed to me going crazy. Those are two separate thoughts. If you are consciously saying this is a panic attack as opposed to I'm going crazy, then you'll spiral more into the crazy, but for this one it's a lot easier to level with. You'll be able to actually manage this side as opposed to that side, and then it's a lot easier to calm yourself down when you're realizing objectively what's going on with your body and noting what's going on with your body, and then having that be like a positive reinforcement. So a lot of it, is positive thinking. It's cliche to say, but it's like, it's also real. You have to have that reassurance. So again, that's why I say, relationships are helpful, especially if you have somebody who's kind of has a little bit of a medical background or knows what's going on with you or has some knowledge or something and is able to tell you these things while it's happening. It's a lot easier to calm yourself down. So that's just some ways to reduce stress, anxiety, and things of that sort. Now, I'm going to dive a little bit into philosophy here. So by all means, you're probably not going to agree with whatever I'm saying, but it's a good discussion to have. You can always contact me and we can always discuss any philosophy of any sort. Just so you know a little bit about me, I'm an atheist. I kind of believe in nihilism, but I have a little bit more of a positive spin on it. I believe the external world kind of has no meaning. So in that sense, space is kind of aimless. So the universe is just kind of going everywhere. It's just sporadic and there's no real consciousness within it. And I feel like if there's no consciousness within something, meaning cannot happen as far as the external world is concerned. So with that being said, I kind of think of it like this. If the entire world and all of life on it were to be destroyed, what is left is the universe. Would there still be a God? Or would there still be meaning left? I can't see it. I just don't. So, but the positive spin on it is I am conscious. That means I can create my own meaning. I can create my own destiny, my own future. I can not have to think about existential thoughts. I don't have to. Not knowing for sure of something is what ultimately gets you started into the whole DP cycle. But not knowing is almost great too. Because being ignorant to not knowing what's going to happen is inevitable. We can't tell the future. We don't know what happens when we're going to die. We don't know why we're here. We don't know why this and that. We have theories. We can go back and forth on what's possible. But ultimately, at the end of the day, nobody's going to have an answer. I mean, that's what it ends up being. So essentially, it's live life to the fullest. Just enjoy things. Like, for example, I enjoy reading. So I'm just going to buy books. I'm going to make lists of things to do all the time. I'm going to set goals. I'm going to hang out with friends that I actually want to be around. I'm going to work a job that I actually want to do. I'm going to say exactly how, like, I'm going to live my life and set my own destiny. And that's essentially what the major issue with stress and anxiety. And I think that falls back on it. When you feel like you're crippling and you're hopeless, that's when everything kind of just freaking implodes on itself. And that's when the DP can set in, because you're almost distancing yourself from all that crap and you're just not wanting to be around it, and it's very stressful. So with that said, you have to debunk your existential thoughts. So let's say if I go into the philosophy of simulation theory. Simulation theory is kind of like thinking that, we're 99.99% in a simulation or whatever like that. And that kind of like dives into like the whole feeling like you're in a movie, feeling like this isn't actually happening, feeling like life is kind of just spiraling and you're just kind of aimless and you're not really living and blah blah blah, and then it's just kind of like it's freaking stressing me out just even thinking about all that. But then you have to think about the counteracting too. I'm able to ask these questions, so obviously that means I am actually conscious. Like, if you can have a positive question asked along with a negative question, it levels the playing field, because what you're going to notice with any philosophy or debate, there is always a counter philosophy that will debunk your own philosophy. Even nihilism. I know the faults that happen with nihilism, and I know the faults that happen with religion. But all in all, it's humans, and I think it's actually great. I love debate. I love talking about different theories and mindsets and stuff like that. But it centers you. It makes you more intellectually sound, as opposed to just fearing everything. So just let go of the fear of the unknown, because you're not going to know what the unknown is, and you probably won't ever know. But with that being said, you can always kind of pursue a life of meaning and a life of hope and goals, and be able to kind of decide where you want to move forward with life. Mindfulness. There's this great book. It's by Thich Hanh. It's called You Are Here. Thich Hanh is really great in regards to kind of explaining what mindfulness is. It's just being in the present moment, not worrying about the past and not worrying about the future. When you worry about the past and the future, that's when anxiety, stress, depression can come in. It can't come in when you're worried about what's going on right now. That's why distraction helps, because distraction is almost mindfulness in and of itself, without you actually kind of knowing it. It's being able to look at the task at hand and be able to do that task and entirely put all of your consciousness into that task. That's what mindfulness is. So setting goals, being like, okay, I need to go here, need to go there, and able to set those goals and not have to just be stressed about, well, what if I do this? What if that? What if with the past and future, blah, blah, blah. When you're in the present moment, it just makes life so much more blissful, because you're not going to have to stress so much about everything. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't stress about the future, because you should. Not in the sense of worrying yourself to death, but in the sense of preparing yourself. You've got to have a balance between what you look at. You can look at the past for something you want to learn from, avoid something that's happening now, or to avoid something that's going to happen in the future, or something that's happening now to avoid something that's going to happen in the future. You just kind of have to make common sense, educated guesses on what's right, wrong for you, but ultimately it's the present moment that decides all that, past or future. Now, I want to talk about recovery. Will it last forever? There are some people who it does last forever, and the reason being is because they cannot accept their own aimlessness, so to speak, or their own unknown, and they just get lost in the same cycle over and over and over. A lot of it has to do with exposure therapy, being able to expose yourself to the thoughts, being able to allow thoughts to happen, being able to go towards the thing that you fear most. My problem was driving. Now, I just drive. I don't even care if I'm going to get anxiety. I drive, I go through it. I don't let the fear take over me. And for some people, they are not willing to let that happen. So then, of course, it's going to keep going forward. So with that being said, when you have the will to not have it last forever, it probably 9 times out of 10 will not last forever. Now, some signs that you're recovering, the biggest sign is you don't think about DP. That's the biggest sign. You can go 2 months, 3 months, a week, a year, and have not one single thought about your own consciousness and existentialism, any thoughts like that. When you're just living in the moment and you're just worried about the task that's at hand, that's when life's blissful. That's when life's great. Like, that's when happiness occurs. So that's the biggest sign of recovery, I think, is just you kind of noticing, oh, I don't have these thoughts. Like, I don't have to worry about worrying, if that makes sense. It kind of dives into self-improvement a little bit. Being able to get up early in the morning, make your bed, being able to set goals, being able to set priorities, being able to push forward through all the crap that's going on with your life, and being able to kind of set yourself free and not just worry so much about what's going on, and just kind of being able to brush things off, being able to laugh at life. There's going to be a reduction of anxiety, depression, things of that sort. If you go to your doctor all the time, they're going to be able to notice it for you. So, I mean, these are just some steps to take. You definitely can try outlets like therapy, medication, doing the whole vitamin thing, exercising, being able to kind of self-reflect, talking to friends, family, being around good people, being able to just enjoy the things that you like to do. So with that being said, those are just some of the signs that I want to go forth and just let you guys know. I'll definitely be placing my contact info in the description. I'll place reading recommendations too in the description as well. Also, I'm going to have my book, again, advertised here. If you want, you can check it out. There's definitely more detailed information than what I covered in this video. But that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. It's been a freaking pleasure making this video. It's awesome. If you need any help, contact me. I'll be more than happy to help you out. I got Twitter, email, Facebook, all that Instagram stuff. Just hit me up. So with that being said, please share this with your friends, please subscribe, and if you have any information that I didn't cover, put it in the comments, have discussion, help people out. Life's great. Do your thing.